and then I will load into YouTube afterwards.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, we have the previous book and not the Andrea Louise anymore.
Yeah, I closed it by accident. I'm gonna open it now. It's page 141, right? Was it?
140.
140. Okay, there you are. Okay, who's gonna be doing reading? Are you going to be? Shall I read?
I can read.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to read. I'm happy to not read. So.
Okay, Raphael, go ahead.
Where did we stop?
Samaritan.
Okay.
Yes.
Samaritans, yeah.
Samaritans to the ministry of regeneration. Samaritans to the ministry of regeneration. I think it's a double. Heavy labor in the abysses of darkness. We have succeeded in dislodging great number of unfortunate entities and have rescued 29 brothers from spirits' haddles. 22 are mentally deranged and 7 in utter psychic exhaustion. Our patrols are preparing transportation. We will arrive soon after midnight. Please see to the necessary arrangements. I noticed that Narcissa and Tobias exchanged significant glances, and when the broadcast ended, I asked, what do they mean? Why this collective transportation? Aren't they all spirits? Tobias smiled and replied, you forget, brother, that you yourself arrived at the Ministry of Assistance in such a manner. I know all about your coming. We must bear in mind that in the lower zone, just as on Earth, we are clothed in heavy fluids. The ostrich and the swallow are both birds and have wings, yet the former can't rise into the air unless transported, whereas the latter will rise to the sky in swift flight. I think I can already stop here and make some comments. This is a very good paragraph to leave absolute no doubt that when we die, we become smoke in the air, and then we are just smoke in the air floating around, right? Because we have that idea that, oh, as soon as I'm on the other side, I don't have the body anymore. I can just levitate around and float around, and with the power of thought, I'm in places. I can easily go visit my family in Brazil. I just need to think about it, and there I am, right? And yes, this is a possibility, and this will be a stage, but it's not automatic. It's not for everyone. It depends a lot on my state, my understanding of the reality, my understanding of how things work on the other side. We cannot ignore laws, the laws that govern the universe, right? We might not know all of them. We don't know the laws that govern thought, right? We don't know how this is thought transmitted. We have the description and so on, but we can see how like electricity is transported through the wire or in the air or this and that, but thought we don't know yet. So there's an element of learning the skill, let's say, of doing that. And not everyone will be able to do it straight away. So I think here this just brings us that element. People need to be carried. People need to walk. People need to be transported. Good.
And would you say that is the case because they are infirmed, they are ill, or are they just, is that the case just because they've discarnated?
I think
because he went on to say that he needed to remind him that he came in such a manner, that is
Yeah.
Andre, and Andre
Yeah.
was a bit ill.
Yeah. I would say ill, but not ill in the sense of like we know like on earth, but then our body and our faculties on the other side, they are a reflection of our mental state, of what we know, of what we experience, of what we know about reality, of how we know how things work. So imagine these people who are being rescued, people that maybe didn't fully realize their situation as discrete spirits. If they did realize that they were not in the incarnate plan, they had no idea what was happening in terms of, oh, okay, but now I'm dead, and then what is going on? What is this? Do I move around? I still have my body, but I'm still discarnate? So if they don't have the understanding of how things work, how would they be allowed or be capable of moving around with the power of thought? So I think that's the element. There's just so much matter condensated on them because of how they understand things, how they understand what being alive means, and how they understand that they cannot move. Like if my leg is hurt, if I'm hurt, my understanding is that my body is like that, that condensates matter around me. That limits how I move, that limits what I can do. So I think, yes, it's an element of being ill, but more from coming from the mental state of not understanding the reality that you are in.
Sorry, Rafael. Do you mind to go up a little bit? Because I want to it call my attention when it says that 29 brothers, yes, 22 mentally with mental problems, and 7 with psychiatry, yes, and yes.
Psych exhaustion, yeah.
So they don't have, I mean, physically, they weren't physically, they were mentally.
Yeah.
In that particular scenario, yeah.
And I remember Andre Luis himself, when he was rescued, he had like, you remember, he was like praying, like he was really like praying in the real prayers that brought the good spirits, kind of like, probably they kind of sedate, they give a pass to him so he can kind of like settle down a little bit. And then that's how rescue. So probably don't have even, I think probably a kind of sleeping, a kind of sedation pass when they get rescued and they get taken away. So I think that's what comes for like to have the transportation as well. And they said as well, they all come like heavily fluids. So somehow the perispirit must have around them something like this, like clothing has that makes very hard for them to move by themselves, or by themselves as well. I think that's in my view the two probably factors that they have to be transported.
Yeah.
Good. Shall we move on, or any
Yeah.
more questions? Yeah. Okay. As if to make it known that there was no time for digressions, he turned to Narcissa and said, "Tonight's group is a large one. We must take immediate measures. We will need more beds," she exclaimed somewhat anxiously. "Don't worry," answered Tobias resolutely. "The mentally deranged patients will be lodged in Pavilion 7 and the weak ones in Ward 33. Raising his right hand to his forehead as if trying to make an important decision, he remarked, "The problem of lodging will be easily settled, but the ones concerning assistance won't be so quickly solved. Because of the dark clouds obscuring the world of the incarnate, our strongest workers have been detailed to reinforce the services of the Ministry of Communication. We need helpers for night duty because those working with the Samaritans will return extremely tired."
What's this dark clouds obscuring the word of the incarnate? Our strong work has been.
Yeah. So I believe that they in this specific time, they were talking about the Second World War, which was either already happening or about to start. So there was, I think it already started. I think a few chapters they mentioned, like I remember there was a chapter where they were talking about being in the inside the house, and there was like a radio, and they were or a TV or something like that. And they were receiving the communications about what was going on Earth, and that was the beginning of the Second World War.
Yeah.
But just before we go in, there's another element here that I think it goes back to one of the things that I love the most about Andrea Luiz's series is that how much the spiritual world is the same as the material world. I know it's vice versa. Anyways, how much they are the same, because they are talking about a physical world, they talk about a physical bed, they talk about needing people to work on night shifts, they talk about workers being tired because they're working over hours or this and that. So it's running a hospital or rescue center or whatever it is, just like we run a hospital or rescue center, work in this plane. And whenever we talk about, oh, there's work to be done on the other side of work, it's normal work of organizing, it's helping people, but it's the usual work, organizing things, putting beds together, cleaning beds, all of those elements. Again, we need to bring back our reality check that on the other side, we're not just smoke, we are organized beings of matter. It's a much more subtle matter, but still matter. And just like we have more condensed matter for objects and things that we need in this life, there are less condensed matter for objects that are used and needed on the other side. It's very sobering to read those descriptions, because it's like, but it's just a thing. It's just a thing.
And Rafael, I must say something that how helpful has been, of course, reading, studying this book, because sometimes, as you can see, I'm not 20 years anymore, and I work full time. And sometimes 2 weeks ago, I was so exhausted. And then I thought, oh, why I have to work? And then I stopped. I said, stop it. It's a good preparation when I'll be
for the other side.
And then out of the blue, no, I wasn't upset anymore. So thank you.
Right. Where were we? Okay. I would be happy to lend a hand to the best of my ability, I exclaimed spontaneously. Tobias gave me a look of appreciative gratitude, which filled my heart with gladness. But have you really made up your mind to stay in the chambers during the night? He asked, surprised. Aren't others doing the same? I inquired in turn. I'm feeling strong and fit and must make up for lost time. That's how I feel, by the way. My new friend patted me on the back, saying, well then, I accept your cooperation. Narcisa and the others will also stay on duty. Moreover, I'll send you Venantius and Sallustius, 2 of our most dependable brothers. I myself can't remain here tonight because of a previous engagement, but I will leave a careful plan of the work to be done. If anything unexpected should turn up, you or any of the assistants can get in touch with me. Was it the end? No. We all set about making the most urgent arrangements, while Narcisa, aided by 5 attendants, prepared the linen and nursing equipment. Tobias and I moved heavy pieces of furniture into Pavilion 7 and Ward 33. I'd be at a loss to explain what was happening to me. Although physically tired, I felt exultantly happy. In the office or workshop, where most are anxious to undertake their tasks to the best of their ability, to serve is the highest privilege. In truth, the hour bonus and any other immediate reward I might gain from my efforts was far from my mind. Yet I was deeply satisfied at the thoughts that in my new position as a humble but worthy worker, I would no longer be ashamed to face my mother or my benefactors in the ministry of assistance. On leaving, Tobias again embraced me, saying, "May the peace of Jesus abide with you all. I wish you a good night of profitable work. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., you may rest. In ordinary times, 12 hours of work is the most we may put in. But these are unusual circumstances." I reply,
Can I, something
yeah,
stands
yeah,
out
yeah.
here to me. There's a concept of time. I've often heard people in different spiritual circles talk about the concept of time is very different in the spiritual realm as we understand it here. But here they actually have they're showing us time that they're working at around 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the 8 a.m. is actually our 8 a.m. here? Or is it 8 a.m. in the spiritual realm that doesn't have any reference to our 8 a.m. here?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I remember, gosh, my memory is terrible. I remember reading about the concept of time in the spiritual world, and in the end, it's a bit abstract and profound, I'm gonna say, but in the end, time is not like a real point in history. Time is just seen, if you think about like our spiritual beings, time is seen as
Continuous.
yeah, but what's the word? Like actions after actions is more of sequence. Is one of a sequence of happenings, of things that happen, of experiences and so on. And it's not so much year X or hour X. It's more of like my time in reference to sequence of experiences I had in life. So as I said, it's a bit abstract and profound, but I can understand that. And that is what really means, if you think about a spiritual life, the progress that we are enduring, going through in our spiritual life. So when I read this, the way I understand is, this is because Astral City is a colony very close to Earth, with very tight links of people in a specific region of the planet. That specific time is just a reference in relation to the planet, in relation to where they are close to, because also 8 a.m. in Brazil is not 8 a.m. in the UK, it's not 8 a.m. in Grenada or in Montenegro. So I think this 8 a.m. here is just a reference to the day and the time of the place where Astral City is more based on or close to. More for organized work, because we know, for instance, during the night where we sleep, that's where when we are be more free to go. We receive people take us, we go study, go work, we go do things that we shouldn't, and so on. So imagine all of the work that goes in a spiritual colony that needs to be linked to our normal physiological day and night as well. The things that they need to plan, program, and so on when we are sleeping. So I think that's why the time references exist there as well, because that's how they organize their work they're going to do with people from Earth.
okay.
And adding on that as well, they say that they should not work more than 12 hours. So they have to count the time. They say 12 hours of work is the most we may put in, because they get tired as well.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I don't know if we already read, I think we read it already. There's a passage where they're talking about one worker in one of the ministries. I can't remember her name, and I can't remember the ministry. But apparently she's been working without stopping, without a break, without like a holiday or anything, for Century in Astral City. And even though she had already more than enough merits to move on, she did not want to move because she had other people that she wanted to help that were linked to her and so on. I can't remember her name. I don't know if you guys recognize this from another chapter. Maybe we'll still get there. And she doesn't take time off. So she's always working. So I think that if you think about André Luiz is finally finding himself after a long period of recovering, studying, learning how things work. He's finally in a position where he can get involved with work. With time, that work can increase. And I think nobody's going to enforce anything. They're not going to say like, oh, here's your contract. You have to put in 8 hours or 10 hours. But it's more based on what is needed around you and how willing are you to help. The energy levels and the other things you learn as you evolve to get from other sources, right, above. But I imagine that if everybody who's arriving is still kind of in the process of being settling down and learning and so on, they will need to rest. They will need to go in and sleep. I think there was a passage where they talk about André Luiz sleeping, his mother come in his dream, even though he's already passed. So based on that group of people, that level of spirits, then they can only give so many hours because they need to physically stop and rest. Go, Sandra.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Ebony, can you go a little bit up? I have a question, please.
Sure. Here?
A little bit more. Oh, yes, okay. So Tobias said that he had an appointment, yes? So he couldn't be with them. And then he said, you or any of assistant can get in touch with me. How? So want to be with them because he had another appointment, but then they could get in touch of him. Sorry, that's what.
Right here.
Yeah.
If anything, expectation. I don't know, but I think I imagine that there are groups with hierarchies. Like I imagine they can escalate and ask people, look, we need to get in contact with him. How? And then they'll get to a point where somebody can probably communicate to him. I think the only answer I can give is a bit airy-fairy, which is we understand that the more elevated spirits they are organizing work, they are connected mentally with the work that they are doing. So even though they might not have that clear, able to communicate through thought and so on, he might still perceive if he's needed there, if need help and so on. But even if that's not the case, there will be somebody at a higher level that would be able to do that. So it's a matter of escalating, right? So if like in a company, oh no, I cannot make this decision, I need to talk to my manager. My manager is not available, then I need to find someone else who can either make the decision or call my manager, or I think it's as similar to that as possible.
They have screen, they have megaphone, so why not telephone between departments as well?
Yeah, true.
That's what I thought, maybe WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Well, we have to remember that the technologies that we have here, it comes from the spiritual realm.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, so they may have some.
A pager.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, where were we?
I replied. Yeah.
Yes, right here.
Yeah. So I replied that I was extremely content with his decision. Later, along with a great number of nurses and attendants, I began to take a more kindly interest in the patients. Among my co-workers, Narcisa, with her spontaneous kindness and maternal solicitude, greatly impressed me. I was attracted by her generosity and tried to come into closer contact with her. It was easy, and I soon found myself enjoying the pleasure of her simple but edifying conversation. The dear old woman was like a living book whose every page breathed devotion and wisdom. But sister, have you been working here for long? I inquired after a few minutes of friendly conversation. I think I anticipated her case when in my comments. Yes, I have been in active service in the chambers of rectification for 6 years and a few months, and must continue here for over 3 more years, being able to fulfill my purpose. At my questioning, look, she continued, I need a serious endorsement. Endorsement? What do you mean? I asked, interested. You see, I must meet some beloved spirits who are reincarnated on the earth, so that together we may work out our advancement. Because of my past errors, I begged for a long time in vain for the opportunity to carry out my plans. I was living in an anxious and perturbed condition. One day, I was advised to speak with Minister Veneranda. She agreed to endorse my plans on the condition that I work here for 10 years to correct certain unbalanced emotional attitudes. I considered the imposition too hard at first and felt like refusing, but I gradually realized that she was right. After all, the corrective measure was meant to benefit me, not her. I can't tell you how much I had profited by having accepted Veneranda's advice. I feel more balanced and understanding now, and I believe I shall live my next experience on the physical sphere with spiritual dignity. It isn't the case I was talking about before, but when we are in our other studies, very often this reflection comes to my mind. Don't know who brings to me, but it comes to my mind, which is when we get to the other side, we do not become better people. We are the same, right? And I think this is also another hard truth to realize, because you see here, somebody, she says, I was living in an anxious and I forgot the other word, mental state. Anxious and perturbed condition. Then she was said, you should work here for an X amount of time to learn, to change, because by working there 10 years, she will physically change her perispirit. She will physically change her mental reactions, and now how mental reactions affect her physical perispirit. She will physically change how the way she thinks reflects on how she feels, and therefore how she acts to or talks to others, actions she takes, and so on. She will also develop the ability of prioritizing other people's needs. So these 10 years, it's not like a sentence, right? This is not, she's not being sentenced 10 years. No, this is 10 years. And then she says that after she, first of all, she said, I did not want to accept, because I imagine I would be the same as someone, I can't believe 10 years, but I know I need to change. My family is all there already. You want me to stay here for 10 years. So I imagine that, look, just because I'm on the other side doesn't mean I'm better. So I'm still stubborn and I know things better than anyone and blah, blah, blah. But she then realized, no, this 10 years actually is what I need to develop the things so I can succeed in my plans. So yeah, that's it. Right. I was about to express my astonishment when a patient near us called out, Narcisa, Narcisa. I had no right to keep that devoted sister from her duties just to satisfy my curiosity. Right. Okay. Chapter 29. Francis' vision. While Narcisa was busy comforting the afflicted patient, I was called to a city communications device, similar to a telephone. There you go, Sandra.
Here we go. Here we go.
It was Laura asking for news. I realized that I had forgotten to tell her about my decision to remain in the chambers for night duty. I apologized and informed her of the situation. Even over the wire, I could sense her joy at the news. At the end of our short conversation, she said, before I say that, another small thing that we don't even realize, sobering piece of information. Oh, but in the spiritual world, you always communicate through thought. All you need to do is think, and then the other one, no. What he was staying over with like this other group with Laura. He was meant to meet her and so on. He went on a journey. He decided to stay. Didn't communicate to Laura. She didn't like all of a sudden realize, oh, through intuition, now I know that he accepted this job. He's going to stay there forever. He offered his help. No, right? It's not all the time and for everyone in all stages. This constant communication through thought to the point that they need the telephone. So at the end of our short conversation, she said, "That's wonderful, my child. Love your work and fill your heart with the joy of useful. Only in this way can we bring about our everlasting edification. Now, just one more word. Remember too that this house is also yours." These words encouraged me and brought me joy. Returning to the chambers, I found Narcisa struggling heroically to calm a young man who seemed to be suffering from a serious mental disorder. I tried to help her. The poor boy, staring out into space, cried out in agony. "Help me, for God's sake, I'm frightened." Frightened with a panic-stricken look on his face, he went on. "Sister Narcisa, he's coming, the monster. I can feel the worms again. Here he is, right there. Save me from him. Send him away." "Calm down, Francis," answered the devoted nurse. "You will be free of him and will be left in peace. But it depends on your own efforts. Just pretend that your mind is a sponge soaked in vinegar. You must wring out the sour substance. I will help you to do this, but the hardest part you must do yourself."
It's funny, even that, like when recovery is all about yourself, you know, you have to look inside yourself and do the work. Nobody can do that for you.
The other thing here that's interesting is that he's saying that he is also in agony. And what did he say? Like he's saying that he's seeing things, right? He's still kind of what's the word when you see things?
Vision?
Hallucination.
Hallucinations, yeah. So the same, especially from a mental perspective, it's the same things that might afflict us here can also afflict us there.
Yeah. But he also went on to say that he says, "I can feel the warmth again." I'm wondering if perhaps he's still somehow attached to his body that's maybe, still decomposing. I mean, we've had several accounts in the book Heaven and Hell, where some of the spirits brought a similar account, like they can almost feel the worms gnawing at them. So I'm wondering if this is a similar situation, or if he has this mental images somehow. And if it's a mental image, where is it coming from?
Yeah, it could be. Could be. And I think there's another element. Even though sometimes what happens is the spirits are so connected to the matter that they literally still connected to the body and they feel the warmth. But sometimes
Yeah.
that lasts for so long that even after there isn't anything else there, the body's already decomposed completely, they still keep that impression in their minds. They relive that experience or that feeling. It could be the case as well.
Yeah. Calm down.
I think did I not read that one? Come down. Yeah, I read that one as well. Yeah.
Okay.
The next one, yeah. At Narcissa's standard, after Narcissa's standard encouraging words, the patient became calm and showed himself willing to cooperate. But in a few minutes, he turned ghastly pale again and began to cry out. But sister, listen to me, he won't go away. He's back again to torment me. Look, look. Yes, Francis, I can see him, she agreed patiently. But it is essential for you to help me drive him away. Oh, what a diabolical ghost, he exclaimed, weeping like a child and inspire my compassion. Put your trust in Jesus and forget the monster, she advised in soothing voice. And now, let me apply a magnetic pass, and the ghost will go away. She gave him a magnetic treatment, filling him with invigorating, comforting fluids. He thanked her, looking greatly relieved. After the treatment was over, he spoke again. Now I feel much better. After kneading his pillows and making him comfortable, Narcissa asked an attendant to bring him a glass of magnetized water. Her example was edifying, her goodwill was contagious. Perceiving my earnest wish to learn, she seemed willing to initiate me in the sublime secrets of service.
Sorry, Raphael. Before it says here ghost,
Mm-hmm.
and the ghost will go away.
Yeah. I think so if you think about the person who is going through the hallucination and so on, I think she was just using the word to help him get out of that or reshift his focus and what he's thinking on to get out of that.
Sure.
To the point, I don't know if they're going to mention it or not, but I believe that she was not seeing anything, but she was agreeing with him more for like if somebody is through the middle of a crisis, the middle of hallucination, and you need to help them. What would matter if you say I cannot see anything and so on?
Yeah.
They're going. So I think it's more than like being. How can I help this person in a way that it will be more easy for them to accept my help? So
Okay.
I think that's what happened. She's saying, look, yeah, I can see it. He's going to go away. What I need to do is let's focus on Jesus. And that, so
Understand, yeah.
you see, I think it's helping him from the moment of crisis, move away and focus on something else. I think that's what happened.
Thank you.
I think they're going to explain now. So perceiving my wish to learn and initiate the secrets of service. To whom was he referring? I asked, greatly impressed. Is he perhaps pursued by some shadow invisible to my eyes? Oh no, she replied. He meant his own corpse. You don't say so.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't say so, I replied, taken aback. So it wasn't even like another spirit who was persecuting him or anything. He's talking about his own body decomposing. So the poor boy entered the spirit sphere after an accident due only to his own carelessness. He was excessively attached to his physical body, and for days he wouldn't leave his grave, refusing to conform to his new state. So exactly what Ebony thought. So deep were his delusions that he spent a long time desperately trying to raise his stiff body. He was terrified at the idea of facing the unknown and utterly unable to muster even the slightest detachment from his physical sensations. Aid from higher spheres, I'm going to stop here actually. Here, we don't realize how much power there is in thought. And we also don't realize how much of our automatic not reactions, but our autopilot in terms of how we function, like our brain coordinates our body, our feelings, emotions, wills, or whatever, trigger actions that we don't even think about. We just constantly in the autopilot for a lot of stuff. And we don't even realize how much power there is in this ingrained way of thinking and reacting and feeling things. Imagine then to be in a situation where you were so attached to your body, and you're saying, they mentioned here, saying he was not ready to let go of the sensations of the physical body. That you realize the situation you are in, and you are there like shaking, trying to get your body to just get up again. So imagine the level of imprinting from a thought perspective, from a reasoning perspective, that you do not feed into from a body that is already dead. And imagine how dense and how much more difficult we're talking about people needing to be taken away to places, right? Be carried to places. Because imagine how dense you are, and in an environment, it's just like if you were living underwater and suddenly have to live in the air. It's the different type of movement, right? It's a different type of moving around. The same thing if you leave the atmosphere and go to the moon, go to the space. It's again, it's a different ways of moving. On the spiritual plane, I think it's the same. We have different types of atmospheres that, depending on your weight, you don't know how to move around, I'd say.
I think this description here is very, very instructive for a lot of us in today's society. I mean, you look around and you see how we have this subculture where people are just excessively obsessed with their bodies. It's almost as if their body is all there is, right? And so I'm starting to wonder if that kind of description is what is waiting for them. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be an evil person to go through that, but it's just the fact that you're so attached to your body that you would have this kind of, you go through that kind of agony,
Yeah. Well, 100%. 100%. In my one of my gospel homes that I do, like a gospeling family with my family in Brazil, and like a few months ago, there was a page from the gospel. Then our conversation kind of led to this comparison. How much? Look, you need to take care of your body. Your body is your tool, is your presence. It's through your body that you have so much to accomplish on this plane, right? And we end up seeing that people, like Emily said, that we have a byproduct of our current society, that we are so focused on the body and physique and blah, 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 etc. And even if we bring it to ourselves with the knowledge that we have, how much time in my life, in my week, whatever, I spend looking after my body in comparison to looking after my spirit? Is the balance? It's a fair question for us to have, right? Because I need both. If, first of all, we need that the most important thing is me as a spirit and how I'm going to, progress. But am I also being careful with these gifts that was given to me for this experience? I need to look after both. And sometimes you have people that can only look after their body. Sometimes you might neglect your body because you are just studying or doing whatever or something. You need to bring that balance to it. But understanding that your body will stay behind. Okay, I'll keep going. Oh wait, what time is it? Yeah, I think we keep going. Aid from higher spheres was of no avail. He had closed his mental zone against all thoughts of eternal life. At last, the worms made him experience such atrocious pain that the unfortunate creature ran away from his tomb horrified, only to begin a dismal wandering in the darker regions of the lower zones. However, those who had been his parents on earth enjoy considerable credit over here, and through their intercession, he was rescued by the Samaritans, who brought him almost by force to our colony. His condition is so serious that he won't be able to leave the chambers of rectification for a long while. The friend who had been his physical father is now engaged in a difficult mission far from the astral city. Just thinking about what came to my mind. No, nothing comes to my mind. Okay, I'll keep going. Does he come to see the patient? Yes, he has already come twice, and each time I was deeply moved by his silent grief. The boy's mental disorder is so great that he didn't even recognize his generous and devoted father. He kept crying pitifully under painful delusions. His father, who had come to visit him, accompanied by Minister Padua of Communication, showed emotional fortitude while in the presence of the minister, to whom he owed his unfortunate son's hospitalization. They spent some time commenting on the spiritual condition of the newcomer. But when Minister Padua was called away unexpectedly, apologizing to me for his human gesture, he knelt by his son's bed, taking the boy's hand into his own, holding them tightly as if to transmit some invigorating vital fluids, kissed the boy's forehead and wept. I couldn't keep back my tears, so I left the room. I don't know what happened, but I noticed that from that day, Francis has been steadily improving. His condition of total insanity has been reduced to occasional crises, which are gradually diminishing. How touching this is, I exclaimed, deeply impressed. But how can his corpse pursue him? Francis' visions, she explained, are nothing but hallucinations. Many spirits suffer from them after physical death. Those who are excessively attached to their material body, who make it the center of their existence, living only through it and for it, cannot abandon their corpses when called to the real life. They do not accept the idea of spirituality and struggle desperately to retain their physical bodies. In time, however, voracious worms drive them away. Then, horrified, they fall to the opposite extreme. The sight of their own corpse, a strong creation of their minds, torments them to the innermost recesses of their souls. They live in crisis for more or less lengthy periods of time, and many suffer acutely until the ghost corpse they have created totally disintegrates. What's the word? Let me think about the word I want to use, because how
Profound.
profound, yeah, maybe we can use profound. How profound it is, this description,
Yep.
to understand the laws that govern everything, right? They were they're talking about groups of people. They even put this in a generalized case, right? They say, like, we have people like that all the time that are so focused on their bodies that then they go through this same experience. So, but you attach your is that you are attached to your body to a point that for you to let go, you need to be pursued by the ghost of your decomposing body in your own mind. You are so consciously dedicated in putting energy into that connection that for you to break that connection, the consequence of everything that you did will torment you and be the reason that will make you want to disconnect from the body. It's very law of cause and effect to another level, right? If they didn't get to that point, they needed that sort of, I'm going to put in big brackets, a big quotation marks. They need that kind of repulsive, almost like inner reaction to what their body represented to break the connection with their body. There's no doubt why it turns people insane on the other side, right? If you talk about being hallucinating and having visions and so on, they are unbalanced from a mental perspective. But that's coming from their own making. It's a lot. It's a lot. Ironic is not. I didn't want to use the word ironic, but ironic is what comes to mind. But I don't mean to say ironic, because it's not. It's not haha, but it's profound. That's why I like Japanese words to describe it. It's scary.
Yep,
scary.
Yeah, I was thinking the very same thing reading through the passage. I mean, we have this idea that it's just people who are morally delinquent who end up in these dark places and dark situations, but it's really not true. I mean, if we worship the body to such an extent where we associate ourselves, our identity with this physical matter, then this is what happens to us. You know, you go through this period of, like you rightly said, you have to go through that phase where you are you're horrified by your own self, right? And I cannot imagine having to go through something like that. So like you rightly said, balance is important. The body is important. We have to take care of it, but not worship it to the point where it's the overarching thing of our entire life. This is all that we live for, so that when it's gone, we end up in situations like that. And I can see how the law of action and reaction and cause and effect could come in place, you know, takes over. So it's a warning.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording and stop. Oops.